Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Doyen. I'm Kushagra, and today we are here for a Spurs transfer review. We have today a regular here with us, Sushil, and joining us for the very first time, making his debut on the Sports Doyen today, it's Karan. Karan, our resident Spurs fan here. Karan, very interesting background, man. You've gone full in Spurs there. The new stadium, the new surroundings. You've got a lot of new signings to talk about. I'm sure we'll get into that, but how have you rated Tottenham's transfer window? Because we've seen the likes of Gareth Bale, of course, he's the biggest player, like the marquee player that the club has signed. But apart from that, we've seen some very intelligent signings as well. Felt Sergio Regulon is a very good addition to the squad. Similarly, Højbjerg, I think, is a massively underrated player from Southampton. And along with them, you've got Matt Doherty as well, right? So I think all in all, it's been a good window for you guys after the whole panic around the furloughing and asking for government help during the lockdown and everything else. You must be pleasantly surprised, right? Daniel Levy generally doesn't go out and spend so much.
Yeah, I was massively surprised. I think it's the Jose effect. He's just been able to get Levy to open his purse strings. I was super surprised. I thought um, first they started signing early. That never happens. Spurs always signs maybe towards the end of the window. So when Højbjerg came in, when Joe Hart came in, like, oh fuck, that's done. Right, this is it. And then the other signings started trickling in, and then it got more and more interesting. I think if I had to rate the window, I'd rate it about a 9 on 10. Just given the past, given the history of Spurs, and this is like comparing the previous Spurs window.
Yeah.
So just having so many players in, especially in positions that needed strengthening. I think that's a key that Jose has managed. The one area that wasn't strengthened was centre back, and if it got Skriniar, I think it would have been a 10 on 10. So I I think overall great window. And if you now look at the Spurs squad, you have serious strength and depth in all positions. You finally have a backup to Harry Kane. Carlos Vinicius just came in, looks super exciting. Again, looks like a super strong guy. I think he'll fit in the Mourinho system. Of course, Bale. Even if Bale is, say, 60% of what he was when he was at Spurs, I think it's a great signing. Especially given Lucas being inconsistent and Lamela again being sort of inconsistent. I think he'll be on that wing mostly, and the other wing is going to be Son and maybe Bergwijn. Maybe Gareth will get a free role, but let's see. Maybe let's see in another few days. Let's see this weekend. Maybe he sees his second debut. And then yeah, Reguilon. Wow, that guy is I. He's like a tracer bullet, for the lack of a better word. When I saw his debut, he was a little like he conceded a goal because he was over enthusiastic, but he more than made up for it on in the rest of it. More importantly, he's also won the Europa League last year, so he knows how to handle those big matches, which is again one area that Spurs, at least on the mentality side, needed people. So I think on the mentality side, they got Regulion, who has experience of winning. They got Joe Hart, who is known to be extremely vocal, extremely experienced, number of England caps. Højbjerg, again, really vocal. Again, one position that was needed a holding midfielder. Um, like Eric Dyer in that position could not turn. He just could not turn, and he's too slow. And Højbjerg is really coming into his own if you see the last few matches. Uh, and yeah, and then both the fullbacks we needed reinforcements there. So you got in Regulion to give Davis a run for his money, because Davis was very comfortable. Rose is clearly not first choice. So Davis just was very comfortable. Now he has to be on his heels all the time because Regulion is going to make him fight for his place. Similarly, on the right, if you see last season, that was one of the main attacking outlets for Spurs as with Aurier.
Yeah.
And now they've got a similar player with Premier League experience, and that's super important. I think Spurs in the past have burnt their hands signing people from other leagues, and then those guys not settling in. I think Doherty, with his experience in Wolves and being so great last season, is a great signing. He's not fully lived up to the hype yet, but I feel he'll settle in soon. So that's my overall on the
Yeah,
window. I think it's been a great
I,
window.
I think that's a very fair assessment of the window. I think it is quite apparent that Spurs have gone in and addressed their major issues. I agree with you there that you would have been better served with an additional centre back, but I guess the next window opens up in what, like 2 months. I think till then the selection of centre backs that you guys have and the attacking capabilities that the squad has shown, I think for most of the matches at least, Spurs should be able to manage with the centre halves that you've got. No, just moving on that point. Sushil, as an outsider, as someone viewing the Spurs situation, we've often seen Daniel Levy being branded as a hard taskmaster in terms of backing his players. Often there's a running stat with Maurizio Pochettino, right? That he had a positive net spend, that he ended up actually making money for the club, not just the Champions League qualification and everything else. And with the new stadium and everything else, a lot of people are expecting Daniel Levy to continue that in that particular vein. It does look a little facetious to actually bring this Amazon documentary into play. But you do see a Don Levy side of him. He's this
Right.
projection of a soft Bond villain sort of a thing that he's trying to go for. I'm not entirely sure, but he tries to look cool there. Like, I don't think Daniel Levy pulled it off. By the way, I think it was Jose's documentary all along. So. Uh, how do you see? Do you think it was more on Jose being able to convince Levy to get the players, or it was on Pochettino that he did not want to go for a certain type of player that Levy might have been comfortable in getting? Like, what do you see from your outside
Right.
perspective? Because if you look at the window as a whole, they've done some really good business, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and also, if you take off that Everton result, this team is just not playing like a Jose team. They're scoring
Right.
goals, they're conceding goals, they're playing on
Yeah.
the only thing they're doing like Jose is playing on the break.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
everything
So.
else, they're very
Hmm.
un-Jose like team.
Yeah. So my and I've mentioned this already in one of the other reviews. I don't remember which one, but I think Tottenham are going to be a real threat this season. If you saw the performances last season, it was really poor compared to how well they've been doing, over the last 5 or 6 years. So I think this year there's going to be a bit of a regression to the mean, where they'll be back in the top four. And I've been backing them since the start of the season. I remember there were some groans when I said that, but after the first few games that have happened, I think they've repaid my faith in that sense. To answer your question about Daniel Levy, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is there's a difference between being stingy and having a good idea about the value of a player. And I think Daniel Levy is more of the latter. I think a lot of Spurs fans tend to diss him, or even rival fans for that matter, tend to diss him because they perceive him as someone who's stingy. But he's actually really good at valuing a player and knowing when to, how much to spend on a particular player. And I think that's something that maybe the average fan doesn't appreciate as much. But it's really important, particularly for Spurs who don't have that commercial cash flow that, say, United has. I'd say people probably should appreciate Levy a little more for that. As to whether it's Mourinho who's sort of pulling the strings, I doubt. I think Levy's a very shrewd operator. He would not buy players just to pacify Mourinho. I'm a little confused by his signing of Bale for that reason. But apart from that, I thought everyone else was very shrewd. The maximum they paid was what, 33 million for Regulion.
Yeah,
So that's understandable in
and that
today's
too, that
market.
too also
And
they stand.
that's a classic Levy signing, right? So
Yeah,
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 young guy, good prospect. He's
right.
like 22. He's
Yeah,
22.
yeah,
He has potential to be like one of the best
exactly,
left backs in the world.
exactly.
So
and
Sorry,
if,
what were you saying, Sean? Yeah,
worst case scenario, Karan. That's what I was adding
yeah,
to that. Worst case scenario with Regulon is either you get a guy who's just about not good enough to play for Real Madrid, that's also pretty damn good. Or
Yeah.
you get a guy who's world class and you make double the money that you spent in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
I do agree. I
best case, he becomes a Spurs legend. I'd say that. But yeah,
if I don't think I see for him to become a Spurs legend, I feel like that means he would have crossed the threshold of
right,
being a.
right,
I
right.
think he
Fair
would
enough.
be good enough to make it to the Madrid team. I think they'll pull him back.
Do they have a
If he,
buyback?
yeah, they do.
Okay, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So let me just come back to the individual transfers.
Yeah,
So I start off with Gareth Bale since I brought him up already. I'm a little confused by the Gareth Bale signing because Gareth Levy is not, sorry, Daniel Levy is not known for his sentimentality. So I'm a little,
that's a lovely love child, huh, Gareth Levy.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure
I
what's
hope
going
that's
on
what
with,
I hope that's not what we get.
yeah,
No,
in terms of goals. Yeah. So just to wrap up that Gareth Bale point, if like Issa was saying, if he manages to maybe chip in with even 7, 8 goals in the Premier League season, that's more than enough. And if you look at the offensive output they've shown already this season, I don't think they'll be lacking for goals.
yeah,
Um, the one thing that Gareth Bale does bring, and this is just reinforcing the point that Karan made, is the big game mentality. And I
exactly.
think
Yeah,
in big games, that's where you need a player like that to carry them through because Tottenham, particularly last season, I think fell behind in some of those bigger games, and he brings that mentality. It's the same for Joe Hart, I believe. He's a Manchester City, a former Manchester City captain. He knows what needs to happen for you to win that title, and I think Jose's cult or will cultivate a really interesting group of players. I think some of that was visible in the Amazon Prime documentary, but with these new characters coming in this season, I'd be more interested to see what happens this season
and
behind the
and
scenes,
and
especially the Dyer incident.
yeah.
the
But
Dyer
I don't
incident.
think are
Yeah.
they still shooting again, Karan?
No, no,
No,
they're not.
no,
They're
no,
not.
they're
I'm
not.
just wishful thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not.
Anyway, so
It's
I'll come.
Amazon
Sorry.
will be kicking themselves though.
Yeah, wrong season.
yeah. Wrong
Amazon will
season.
kick. Yeah.
Anyway, so I won't get into each and every small transfer they've done. Maybe Isser can talk more about the less known aspects of the transfer window. I will cover 3 players though, and I'll take just about a minute on each. So Regulon, I think, is going to be excellent. Um, I've already spoken at length about him, so we won't get into him too much. Matt Doherty, like Isser said, they needed someone on that right flank to, not just help with the offensive output, but I think he's a much better defender than Aurier as well.
Yeah,
So I think
he's more
Mourinho
reliable.
and more reliable, exactly. And I think Mourinho in particular will value that and probably start him more often than Aurier. If you look at Højbjerg, I've always rated him pretty highly. And he's really come into his own over the last season or two. And it's difficult to really see that improvement for a player who plays in the position that he does. But if you look at his stats, you can see that improvement steadily over time in terms of pass accuracy and things like that. So he's the perfect anchor for Mourinho's midfield, and I think it gives a lot more freedom to existing players like Ndombele and others in the midfield, Sissoko, to actually push forward and help support the attack. And I think you saw bits of that in the previous games, in the game so far this season.
Yeah.
And I am not familiar with Vinicius, to be honest. Maybe Issa can offer some clarity on that. But I'd say overall, Spurs' depth is really going to help them this season. There's something I mentioned during the Chelsea podcast too, which is squads that are really deep, that are that have maybe 2 or 3 players per position. They'll do really well because the season's very compressed, and in the Premier League with December already being a problem for most teams, I think this will really serve them well moving forward.
Yeah, and as far as the squad and also as far as the mentality is concerned, I think
Yeah.
just a bit on Gareth Bale. I feel it's just what 4 Champions Leagues that he's won at Real Madrid, like 2 La Ligas, and God knows how many other trophies. Uh, it sort of just juxtaposes the point that Jose Mourinho has been trying to make. That I feel like a lot of players that he's gotten here at Spurs, similar profile of players is what he was hunting for at United as well, and always spoke very highly of the Spurs squad, even when he was at Chelsea and then at United. So I think he probably in his mind, Karan, sees this as his as his shot at winning the league again, because maybe not this season, but this sort of a core. Because believe me, like in Jungmin Son, you got the best left winger in the Premier League at
Mhm.
least. And I would
Debatable, but let's go on.
no, I wouldn't classify Sadio Mane as a winger.
Not just Mane, but anyway,
Yeah,
let's
I
save
know.
that for
That's the
later.
only person you can put in with it.
Yeah.
I won't put anyone there. So that again, I'm making the list. So as a Jungmin Son, you've got the best winger or a support striker in the league. Definitely the most informed striker in the league right now.
That is true. Yeah.
In Harry Kane, you've got a player who's shown a different facet of his game in the past 6 months. This whole quarterback style of game that he's been playing, even against United, it was very effective. Kept on seeing him receiving the ball near the center circle and pushing it out wide to Aurier or pushing it wide to Reguilon and all. It's
I like
fantastic. That
I like
circulation
how
of ball.
he can't stop smiling because of all the praise you're
Bro,
giving
like
him.
you cannot really abuse it, right? Like because the things are
Yeah,
going well. So
yeah.
Karan, what are your expectations from this season? I know, but don't just give me the placid answer, man. Just let's get a fourth and then build for next season and everything else.
No,
I'm sure.
I'm not giving that because, and I think all of this is bits and pieces to say, Jose, this is your season. You need a Spurs needs a trophy badly, right? You need a trophy badly. You have now the tools to get it. You're in 4 competitions, right? Even if you win the fucking Carabao Cup, that's a trophy. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So you have the Carabao Cup, you have the FA Cup, you have the Europa League, and I don't know if you guys saw that comment from Harry Redknapp. Harry Redknapp.
yeah. Premier League. Yeah, yeah.
He said it's possible, right? It's just if you can maintain this form, if you can keep your squad together, if you can like ensure it, like Kane doesn't get injured, Vinicius is in every now and then
Kane
to
and
like
Son, if you guys manage them throughout the season, anything can happen.
yeah. And I actually think this season is not 7 signings, it's 8 signings because with Højbjerg in, now Ndombele can play that free role a little more.
Yeah,
He doesn't have so many defensive responsibilities. He can't run. Everyone knows he can't run. He's trying his best. If you guys see that meme from the final of the Chelsea penalty shootout,
yeah.
everyone was running towards. It was Lloris, right? Everyone was running
Yeah.
towards Lloris. The guy couldn't run, man. He was like, "I'm done. Like, I can't do anymore." But he's been great. I hope the relationship seems improved with Mourinho. So I hope it continues. And Harry Kane is class, right? His shooting was always class. His, the Spurs fans would knew his passing was always class. If you guys if you see the latest FIFA review video on the Spurs um, Instagram, it shows Harry Kane looking at his card, and the one thing he says, passing. I think that's going to improve this season. Like, let's see next season, right? He thought his passing was low on the FIFA this thing. That was his comment. So I really do expect that they will win a trophy because I think and I'm sure the Amazon documentary is doctored in the best way possible to the best light for Spurs. But I also do believe that Jose has been inculcating this mentality for a while now, and with the new
Yeah.
signings, it's just going to get reinforced. And I feel that there is this atmosphere where everyone knows that they need to win this season. Because if they don't win this season, I don't see Harry Kane staying another season. Very simple. I don't see Harry Kane staying the next season if they don't win a trophy this season.
All right, I think that's a big statement to make, Karan. I think, yeah. Then again, I think your squad is good enough for you to win a trophy this season. I think
Yeah.
Europa League definitely should be a trophy that the squad should target. One of the two domestic cups, because we know Jose how he goes. He'll play the first. He'll end up playing his best players for every match. So that's how he does. Even if it's a charity shield or a European Super Cup or everything else, he always counts those trophies. I remember the ridiculous 3 sign he did at United. Charity Shield, League Cup, and Europa League. The Paupers treble. So, yeah, so he definitely does that. You cannot discount that. There is a reason he's one of the 2 most successful managers going around in the world. Sushil, on that front, I think I'd like to wrap this video up with, the final
Right.
question to you and, of course, to Karan as well. Uh, Karan said that, of course, making the Champions League remains the goal in the league. Maybe even if Harry Redknapp has made those comments, it's a strange as league we've seen right now. Because you got Everton at the top. Who would have ever thought that? And up until the weekend before the last one, Liverpool were conforming to the notion. Being looking like someone who would set the pace. They might still do that. It's just one result. I understand it was a horrific scoreline, but it was one result. But we've seen Paul Palaces in everyone's game. But one has to understand we didn't see these issues with Liverpool at least at the beginning of the season last season, and we didn't see so many issues with all the big teams again at the beginning of the last season. So do you genuinely feel that Spurs can gate crash the party and challenge Liverpool and perhaps Chelsea or City for the top spot?
Is that for Isar or me?
I'll start with you and we'll
Okay,
round up
okay,
with this. Is
okay, sure. There's a dark horses in my opinion, and for a lot of the reasons that I've already stated, and also for the fact that I think over the last two seasons, their key player Harry Kane, he played 29 and 28 games in the Premier League, right? And their goal output fell off because of that. Son, as brilliant a player as he is, I don't think he's ever going to average more than like 15, 20 goals a season tops, right? So far, his Premier League record is 12 or 14, actually. So he's not the player who's going to get you that many goals. So it has to be Harry Kane. And given the fact that it has to be Harry Kane, I think the last two seasons, and Isar can correct me if I'm wrong, he was struggling with an ankle injury.
Yeah,
Now, because of the
the
way things
lockdown.
transpired and with the lockdown and things like that, I think there's a good chance he's probably completely recovered from that. At least his game seems to be,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's
communicating
really
that fact.
helped.
Yeah. And so if he's able to put in, a shift for maybe not 38 games, but 35, 36 games, I think it takes Spurs back to the level they were before last season, right? That's number one. Um, Number two, the other key factor I think that will shape where they finish the season is whether the Dyer Alderweireld is the
Yeah,
centre back. Yeah,
Yeah, that
whether that pairing holds up now that Vertonghen was a little past his sell-by date already. So whether that centre back pairing holds up, and if something happens to one of those two, who comes in, who plugs that gap? Because Mourinho relies a lot on his centre back pairing more so than other coaches. I think because they're on the defensive quite a lot. So those are the two key factors for me. And to answer your question based on those two things, I think Spurs will finish in the top four. I, I'm seeing weaknesses from United to a certain extent. And
definitely.
while I had backed Chelsea initially at the start of the season, I'm not really seeing anything so far that's convincing me that they'll be able to do it. So I'm sort of backing Spurs to maybe break into the top four now. As to whether they can challenge Liverpool and City, I think. Look, I think it'll be difficult to argue that one of the earlier teams of last few seasons. Those were probably better than the Spurs squad in a lot of ways, more complete in some sense. I
Yeah,
think this Spurs team relies a lot on their offense. And that being the case, you'll probably see a lot of games where maybe they don't come out on top because of that. So I see them dropping points, and I see them dropping points particularly against Liverpool and City in the four games that they play against them. So I think third's their ceiling, but yeah, I'd be as a neutral fan, I'd be happy to have them surprise me. As a Liverpool fan, not so much.
What about you, Karan? Any special hopes off of Jose as far as the league is concerned? And just as you round up the conversation, just your thoughts on Jose. What have you made of the playing style? What have you made of the man management? What have you made of the handling of the press, the handling of the club? A word on your manager and also your expectations, and then I suppose we can round off.
yeah, yeah, sure. Let me just start with Jose. I think Jose in front of the media is not the same Jose that he was at United. I think he's just much more comfortable here. I don't know if it's the lack of pressure, if he feels that he has more of a say over here at Spurs than he had at United. I'm not sure, but he just seems more calm. He seems more like the earlier Jose. So that I really like. From the documentary, whatever we saw, his man management seems he seems to be the guy who's more focused on changing the mentality and changing the mindset of the players. Um, in ter- and I think that is one of the really important things required in this squad. They have not won for so many years. They screwed up that two-horse race in which they came when Leicester won. Right? So I think that is the key thing, and I see signs of that changing. I also see uh, to to Sushil's point, I see this season them not dropping points. I see this season them grinding out results. I think just basis what we've seen, Spurs are much more comfortable taking pressure. In an earlier Spurs squad that was not on top of the game would have crumbled. I think this Spurs squad is mentally prepared to say, okay, I will play 60 minutes and defend for 60 minutes and take that one chance on the transition and kill the game. Right? And I think Jose is preparing the squad for that because Jose knows that this is not a squad that can trounce an opposition day in and day out. You're going to have days where you're going to be on the back foot and you just need to be able to absorb that pressure. Which is why I feel that top four should be possible, should be very possible. At least a 90%, I would say 100%, should be 100% in the top four this season. I feel that this season might also end up being a similar season to the one in which Leicester won. Just like everyone's on top, everyone's screwing up, right? But you don't know what's going to happen. So it might be another of those crazy seasons. And if it's one of those crazy seasons, you never know, right? I feel that they have the strength in depth. I feel that they have the manager with the experience who has now also been given the tools through this transfer window to achieve something. So yeah, I have high hopes for the season. Just fingers crossed on Harry Kane not getting injured, but even if he does, um, I at least there is another striker in play. At least there is someone who can come in and play that target man role, uh, and you don't have to have Lucas sitting up there and running around.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I have really high hopes for this season. They definitely need to, like I said this earlier, they definitely need to win this trophy. Um, I I feel they have a hard time keeping Deacon and maybe even Mourinho around.
All right. Okay. I think that about sums it up for us. I think your confidence speaks for itself. I think the club has done very well to change perceptions and also not just perception to change the composition of the squad quite effectively. Considering that you guys did not really have a quiet summer last year as well, you did bring in quite expensive players, and Dombele was one of the players you were mentioning as well. So even Lo Celso, I thought both these signings were really good signings last year, but for some odd reason, Spurs fans couldn't really see the entire potential of the two players. Probably Giovanni more so than Ndombele, but one would
Gio's
hope.
come in. Gio's in, and
Yeah,
Gio came in last like towards the end of the last season. I think everyone knew what Gio can do. And I
yeah.
think in the initial stages of this season, everyone knows what Ndombele can do. So I'm really looking forward to that midfield. I really actually I shouldn't say this as a Spurs fan, but I don't care if Dele Alli plays or doesn't. He's not. He's been
I'm
extremely.
surprised. I'm surprised he didn't leave. I'm really surprised he didn't leave.
Yeah, I think PSG didn't bite. I think PSG didn't bite. Uh, that loan never materialized, so he had to stay on.
Yeah, and I think Dele Alli needs to have a long hard look at himself at this point because I think if he doesn't end up going to one of these continental giants, if he moves in
Yeah.
England, the only way is down for him. I don't think he gets a comparative Spurs level club. I think he has to step down, and and I don't know if he'd want to do that. So yeah, but that's about it from us, guys. So if I were to give my prediction, I think Spurs would be in the mix for the top four positions for sure. It could be either third or fourth, depends on the. It depends entirely on the form of the team and everything else.
Yeah.
I think it will be between three teams. I think it will be between Chelsea, Arsenal, and Spurs for the two spots. I still think City and Liverpool will have enough to be amongst the top two. So I think at that point, I think we'll be fine. But as far as the business is concerned, Karan, man, I think you guys have all the right to be excited. I think more power to you guys. Jose might break your jinx. You know, Jose might break your jinx. I think if nothing else,
He's a winner.
yeah, if nothing else, he's a winner. And I think in that sense, even in the mentality sense that you talked about, now that one tries to, tries to link these things. You guys got the Southampton captain, you guys got the Wales captain, you guys got the former City vice captain, and you guys have got Matt Doherty, who was also again the vice captain at Wolves. So you guys have essentially gotten four leaders in your team. So I am sure that will make a difference. I think
Yeah.
that will have a mentality difference in sport. So once again, thank you so much, Karan, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you here, and we'll keep pinging you for more Spurs content. Now that we know that you're available, whether you're here or in Belgium, that's regardless. We're just a call away. Any parting thoughts that you might have?
No, I think this was a pleasure. Thanks so much, Kushagra, Sushil. I think it's interesting. It's my first time, but interesting to have this conversation. And usually I analyze this in my head, but I don't really
Yeah.
sit a lot with people. So yeah, it's a nice opportunity to do that.
Yeah, man, and we all had a great time as well. Sushil, as usual, thanks, man. Thanks for being here. We'll see you for the next
Yep.
one. And once again, thank you so much, Karan. And to our viewers, thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. Please do share the video, especially with your Spurs friends. Do let us know if they've got any differing opinions through the comments. And do subscribe to the channel and keep it locked to the Sports Doing. Thank you.